Now, there is another conference being organized for another summit by a group that calls itself the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. Thanks for joining me on Esteemed Television, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Augustine Ambe. I have an interesting show here today, and I'd like to take off right away. And this show is so important that I wanted to really make some notes to myself. So you will see me doing a lot of checking on my notes because I just want to make sure that I stay tight. If you have been in the struggle of the people of the southern Cameroons today, called Ambazonia, long enough, or if you spend some time and study the history, you realize that we are constantly doing the same thing over and over again, but each time expecting a different outcome. A big reason why this phenomenon continues is because the struggle is not institutionalized and therefore has no institutional memory to pull from that informs subsequent actions on issues. Our struggle is not institutionalized, and the role of institutions is to maintain some consistency in society and also maintain a certain activity so that it continues, or provide a certain service to a segment of society or to the general society. And because our struggle is not institutionalized enough, we don't have institutional memory, and so we keep repeating stuff. Okay, so we keep doing the same thing and get the same outcome, and maybe people forget, then another group comes and does the same thing, and we get the same outcome, and there's no connection from the past. The result of the absence of institutional memory is that we are left repeating what has already happened, leaving us spinning in circles instead of learning from the past and improving our processes, or moving on having learned from the past.
We resolved the main problem that everybody seemed to have picked up. Our problem of leadership. Our problem of many voices speaking for us. It is resolved. Before we arrived, it took us 2 years to organize this conference. Before we arrived at this conference, we finally brought everybody to sit down and agree that at the end of this conference, there is going to be one and only one leadership structure for the Southern Cameroons.
Now, there is another conference being organized for another summit by a group that calls itself the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. Who have they formed a coalition with? Is this just a group of individuals who have been put together or came together and chose to call themselves a coalition? Can individuals become a coalition? Or are they a group of people who want to be seen as a coalition? If that is the case, why do they want to be seen as something they are not? All these questions call into question the credibility of CDN. And for a people who were blindfolded into losing their legal independence and reduced into dogs and rats in their own country, CDN looks like another blindfold. Another blindfold that comes not with something new to offer, but to repeat what took place over 20 years ago. This is not a repeat of what happened more than 20 years ago, but a repeat organized by a less credible group of people with less of what Professor Anyangwe calls liberation credentials. I'm sorry for pulling Dr. Carson Anyangwe into this, but I listened to him in an outing calling Chris Anu a man with no liberation credentials. And he did that just to make a point. Now, when someone like Professor Carson Anyangwe uses words like that, he is not trying to limit the involvement of Ambazonians in the struggle to free or liberate their own country. He is cautioning overzealous Ambazonians from overplaying their hand and hurting the struggle instead of helping it. Here's Professor Carson Anyangwe in 2001 inviting all Ambazonians to join the fight.
We, the people of the Southern Cameroons, are all joint owners of this movement for our liberation. In this struggle, therefore, there can be no passengers. We are all on board as combatants in one way, in one form or another. There can be no free-wheelers. We are all stakeholders. There can be no bystanders. We are all involved or affected. There can be no apoliticism. Today's colonization of our country has politicized us, even as yesterday's colonization politicized our predecessors. No Southern Cameroonian with self-worth, self-respect, integrity, self-esteem, self-confidence, dignity, and concern for the future of himself or herself and children can possibly be indifferent to this struggle. I therefore challenge all of us with the wherewithal, the know-how, the know-what, the know-where, the know-who, to put all the resources at the service of the struggle.
CDN has very worthy patriots of Ambazonians among their ranks. They need to exercise the same level of caution that all serious Ambazonians must exercise to make sure we are not fooled again. The last point I want to make about CDN in her quest to play a macro organizer of Ambazonian fighters, like SCNC North America did in 2001, is that SCNC North America earned that role through challenging La République du Cameroun and their French backers everywhere for a long time and has paid the price for doing so. We are yet to know who CDN represents, let alone see them challenge the occupying colonial force anywhere. We've never seen CDN protesting in front of the embassy of La République or in front of the French embassy. So the question is CDN also organizing La République du Cameroun and France for negotiations? Is CDN just organizing Ambazonians and their fighters for negotiations, or are they also engaging La République du Cameroun and the French? Because, I mean, when you talk of negotiations, people don't negotiate with themselves. They negotiate with someone or another group, an opponent. Can they assure us that La République and France are ready for negotiations? What is to be negotiated? Can La République and France agree to negotiate their exit of Ambazonian territory? So as we talk about negotiations, or as CDN talks about negotiations, these are questions to be asked. But the biggest question, both to SCNC, North America, and CDN is, why do they think the best way to create a strong and forceful leadership for Ambazonia is through a conference table? Why? CDN is doing even worse. They wish to bring all talkers and fighters in the field to determine Ambazonian leadership. Okay? In 2001, we had Ambazonia, we had SCNC, we had all the other smaller groups. All of them were talking. We're still at the level of talking. Today, we've passed the level of talking. there are fighting groups on the ground, and then there are talking groups in the diaspora. Some made of 2 people, some of 1, some of many. CDN intends to bring all of these groups and put them in a hall. Maybe what Ambazonia needs is doing leadership, not talking groups claiming leadership. Maybe what Ambazonia needs is doing leadership that does, okay, not talking groups claiming leadership. Doing leadership takes place in the field and does so through natural selection, not on a conference table, as is talked about now. If I am a fighting group, I'll not be caught on that table because it will be a table to empower talkers. So if I am a fighting group on ground 1, I would not like to go and sit in a conference table deciding who the leadership is with a small group of maybe 1-2 people sitting on the same conference table with me, probably with the same amount of votes. I would not want to be part of that, because they would elevate their status and lower mine, who have passed the point of talking and I'm actually fighting and giving hell to the enemy on the ground. Ambazonia will support anyone that can liberate them from bondage. An experience has shown us how that works. The reason I'm saying that is because you may argue that, well, we need to bring every group so that some can support financially. No, because these groups are more there for their own interests, okay? And Ambazonians are ready to support any group that leads or that promotes and actually push their fight forward. The fighting groups are the ones that are doing that. I do have Terence Bangawakai with me on the phone. Terence, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me once more.
Yes. So I just went through a little presentation here. Let me first hear what you think. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts? Just raw thoughts, not organized here. Just tell me what intuitively comes to your mind.
There's a lot to unpack from what you've said, and I really do not know where to begin.
Well, why don't we begin by me asking you, have you heard of CDN?
Yes, I have heard of CDN. I heard, I first came in contact with them, I think, last year when they conducted the survey on independence. I was one of the respondents to that survey. That was the first time I became aware of them.
Let me ask you this: what were some of the questions they asked?
Well, it was basically a straightforward survey. The best option to resolve the crisis. I think full independence was one of the options. I think federalism, special status, or something like that. I can't really remember, but I do remember that I voted for, or my response was that full independence was the option that is most logical and most just in order to, bring an end to the crisis.
Mm-hmm. I know the results of that survey came out later. Did you have a chance to read through them?
Yeah, the funny thing is that when the results came out, I was alerted to it by somebody I'd shared the survey with, and they were worried about the way the results were editorialized on the webpage of CDN. So I think he sent me a link, and I went to the website, to see for myself what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I think there was a sentence in the reporting of that survey that invoked, I think, what was the phrase? Greater autonomy. And so that is what this guy, my friend, that's what he was reacting to. He was, have you seen this? What are they talking about? Greater autonomy? We did not fill a survey asking for greater autonomy, you know? So, I thought that was unfortunate the way in which that was presented.
Okay. I want to go back to a few things I talked about in my short presentation here and get your reaction. You know, normally when we talk of coalitions, right, we talk of different groups coming together. What do you think about the name CDN?
Well, like most people, when I heard the name coalition, I obviously instinctively thought that, this was a group it was an alliance of different groups. But that's not the case. I think it's just, the dictionary definition of a coalition does allow for individuals coming together, and that's what it is. It's a group of individuals who've come together, and I guess technically speaking that they form a coalition of individuals who've come together to, I guess, negotiate and dialogue.
Yeah, but let me I mentioned something about SCNC North America earning its way to and not only earning its way but also growing its membership to feel that they are empowered to be the leader of the struggle, and also to bring other groups to help them lead the struggle, which is why they were really trying to get people together so they can speak with one voice. They've earned a leadership role, and they felt like we want to push this thing to success, and they felt like let's bring other people along with us. Now, how does a group of people sit and decide that we are going to come together and somehow be the macro player among groups that are actually deeply involved in the struggle? And I say that because, like I also mentioned somewhere, you don't see CDN members protesting anywhere. You don't see them being as activists in the Ambazonian struggle in the traditional way. I'm not saying they are not members in that organization that belong to activist organizations or something like that, but how can a group come and say, you know what, I see people fighting, let's form ourselves and bring all of them together, let them for dialogue and negotiations? Is there an example of that kind of a group anywhere in the world?
Not that I can think of. Maybe it's an innovation in crisis resolution. By the way, I thought that you were a big fan of CDN, I'm kind of taken aback by
what? There's nothing I'm doing here other than looking very carefully. Yes, I was a very big fan because I thought this were a group of activists. I thought they were going to do more, but in line of activism, I thought they were going to be activists. But I've seen them try more to play. I don't want to use the word boss, but they're trying to play a macro role, and that begins to bother me, especially when I start asking some of the questions I already asked, and you heard me ask those questions. So no, I like some of the members there. I follow one of their presentations. I thought they spoke really well. I thought they're very well organized. But all this speaking and organization is not to bring the fight to the enemy. It is more somehow to use that to apply all of that to the activists, and I want to use the word force them to negotiate, or with a goal to make the activists negotiate. Even we are in 2021. They didn't begin this year. Okay, our struggle has barely been it's going to the 5th year, maybe the 5th year, but they were already in existence before now. So it's almost to me like when the struggle started, they started thinking of negotiations. Are you with me?
Yeah. Well, the reason that I brought that up, that I thought you were a big fan, is obviously because you've expressed admiration of some of the work that we've done.
Absolutely.
And I also have an vision of some of the work that they've done. I can point specifically to the library, the data that they are collecting on atrocities. I think it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your questioning of the organization as it is, I think is merited. About a month or so ago, I followed an interview that Prof had given to a Nigerian professor historian.
You mean Professor Anyangwe?
Yes, Professor Anyangwe.
Okay.
I think it's called the Toyin Falola interviews. And in Prof's fashion, he went through the litany of events, that led to the complete emasculation of the territory and its people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the participants in that presentation later on asked that did no one question all of these steps that they were taking, that Prof had outlined the introduction of Ngor as administrator or whatever, and
Jason Ngor,
yeah, a few other things that Prof had outlined. And Prof was like, yeah, no one questioned it. So I think it's always very important that, we learn from that history and we do question everything that concerns the plight and future of our people. So it's in order for you to raise these questions, and hopefully, they may reach out to you and provide some answers and perspective to what you're doing and what your posture is.
Yes, and because to be honest with you, like I said, most of them are nice people. I've spoken to some and I've admired their work, but I thought that work was to collect some data so that we can use for fighting. But it looks to me that all of that was being collected to use to come and get Ambazonia in a situation where I cannot see what is motivating it. Can you tell what is motivating all this talk about negotiation?
I don't know for sure, but I can deduce based on what I've learned about the organization, coming into this conversation today.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing, obviously, that I learned was that it wasn't actually an alliance of multiple groups.
So it's an alliance of multiple groups.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
It was not an alliance of multiple groups.
Yeah,
okay.
So. I think for the average person, when they hear the word coalition, they definitely think that, you have several groups involved. But that is neither here nor there, And, I did go to the website of the organization. I hadn't been there since, the result of the survey came out.
Mm-hmm. And
what struck me was the top of the fold of the website.
Mm-hmm.
International mediated negotiations without preconditions
mm-hmm.
is highlighted. Sustainable peace is highlighted. In the background is a picture of Biden and Blinken. But the first question I had came to my mind when I saw the picture of the current US president and his Secretary of State was there a picture of Trump and Pompeo when they were in charge? And this was updated to reflect the changing political realities of Cameroon, of the United States rather. If that wasn't the case, are they angling to be a pro-democratic organization? And frankly, the website looks to me like that of a think tank, of a Washington-based think tank.
Mm-hmm.
When you start talking about the CDN is committed to building sustainable peace in the Gulf of Guinea by ending the war in Cameroon. What are you talking about? The Gulf of Guinea? Really? You want to build sustainable peace in the Gulf of Guinea? From Angola to Gambia or wherever it ends?
So this thing is not to bring peace to Ambazonia, it is to the Gulf of Guinea.
That's the top of the fold. As an Ambazonia, I do not see myself reflected in that. I do not see myself reflected in the imagery
mm-hmm.
of Biden and Blinken standing there. of sustainable peace in the Gulf of Guinea. What has that got to do with the annexation of the southern Cameroon that everybody is fighting to reverse, which is the justice that these people seek? When I hear of sustainable peace, it does remind me of the speeches that Paul Biya used to give.
I was just thinking about that.
Yes, because Paul Biya's speeches was always about peace, 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 peace. And his opponents used to respond to that and say, well, it's a piece of the graveyard. That was the only response I guess they could muster. But after, I also look at the vision of the company, of the organization.
Mm-hmm. What does the vision statement say?
And this is where I was completely floored. The vision is an all-inclusive, just and peaceful society where the civil liberties of all are protected, promoted, and preserved. Who are they talking about?
What society are they talking about?
Exactly. So this is why I am saying that I look at them as, because as an Ambazonian, I do not recognize myself as somebody who is an advocate to bring a just end to this crisis. I do not recognize myself in this vision.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, they don't even mention it. Ambazonia is not mentioned.
And I think if you ask a 10-year-old back home what is the vision, if they are politically conscious, I think it's probably going to be like a 3 or 4 word answer: an independent state of Ambazonia, something like that.
Yes.
That's the vision we all have.
Yes.
Specific, straight to the point, no fluff. This is absolutely fluffy, dispersive, and it says nothing to the project at hand. So those are the questions I'll have for CDN.
But I want to go back to something that you analyzed, and as you were analyzing that, a picture was being painted in front of me. You talked about CDN having all these American personalities on their website and talking about peace in the Gulf, and I'm thinking of Paul Biya talking about peace all the time, and then I go back to something I read a long time ago, that when the French lost Algeria and Algeria was the source of their energy, they then focused on sub-Saharan Africa, and their problem in sub-Saharan Africa was to create stability so that they can get resources without problems. And so I see, and that's why I think you mentioned that CDN is using the same kind of language that Paul Biya uses, because they are addressing a third party. If you listen to Paul Biya speak, you don't hear the problems of La République du Cameroun. You don't hear him talk about some of the things that you think are most pressing. But you read it and you don't understand the language. In fact, it's like he talks over your head. But the people internationally who fund and keep him there, the international interests, understand. And so if you were saying I was a big fan of CDN, I was, until I started looking at some of these things that you are talking about, and I'm saying, where is the focus on Ambazonia? I don't see it. So, but one of the things you notice is that when Paul Biya, after addressing the international committee, then he comes down and tries to put control on the citizens of La République du Cameroun so that they toe the line. You understand what I'm saying? They toe the line and maintain the peace. I see CDN on their international communication. They bring all these international sounding phenomenons and aspirations, but when they come to the Ambazonian people, then they talk of Ambazonia and talk about organizing peace and talk about speaking one voice on whose behalf? You know, so there is a discrepancy between the message they're putting out and the activities within the community. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think again, there's this dichotomy between the well-meaning individuals in the diaspora trying to do what they think is their best to help the situation back home, and then there is the fight on ground zero. There is a fight in the area from which a resolution of the crisis will come. And let me state once more that it's going to come. Change comes from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, this is a reality people have to deal with, right? There is an excessive tendency within the people in the diaspora, and maybe that is to be expected because, you know, most of us are Westerners. I think we have Western nationalities. Our reality on a day-to-day basis is generally the dictates of Western life. And there's this excessive desire to appease what they call the diplomatic community. This talk of sustainable peace in the Gulf of Guinea is to appease the diplomatic community. It reads like language that Chevron would love to listen to. You know, it means nothing, frankly, to an amber board.
Okay, let me ask you this, okay?
Who lives, you know, one second at a time. It's a very, it's a nothingness of communication as far as I'm concerned. But it may be that strategically those are the people they want to appeal to. Maybe they are not appealing to the Ambazonian people. And that's why the presentation of their website and the vision that they profess to have is what it is. Maybe it's a conscious strategic choice that they've made.
And that was what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if you think maybe they intend well. Maybe they think we are not diplomatically connected, and so they're trying to bring in some diplomacy to come and support the Ambazonian situation. Does it sound like that to you?
Well, you know, I'm really not going to get into that because I think we're way past all of that stuff. We are not here. I think the Ambazonian people are no longer interested in appeasing, in pleasing what they call the diplomatic community or diplomatic connections. There's a communication that I came across a few days ago where somebody said that Cameroon has not been punished enough for us to go to the negotiating table. So this is coming from an Amber fighter who are feeling a little bit more confident lately, and they are saying that they need to exert more punishment on these people, enact more punishment on these people before they even starting to talk.
Yes, let me just cut in and say that I also heard someone who is also involved in the security business say that Ambazonia is not yet a threat enough to make La République want to negotiate. So it sounds like the same kind of a view on things, isn't it?
Yeah. So, once again, this goes into the view from the ground and the view from those who are outside of the territory. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I think, you know, after having said that, the change, the evolution, the drivers are those on the ground. I do believe, unlike the diaspora and their lack of institutional memory, there is institutional memory on ground zero. You know, I can make an argument and you may or may not agree with it, but if you look at the recent history, and I think it's important because this lack of institutional memory has to do also with the fact that a lot of the actions which are carried out are void of historical context and perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is, but I think on grounds, the people on grounds, I think they are very grounded. Let me give you a little example. The conference, right, that Dr. Shenlong addressed so effectively was in 2001, right?
Yes,
nothing nothing
happened
happened after that. In 2003, there was another international conference at the behest of the Southern Cameroons Youth League. They brought a lot of people, including members of the NCNC. I believe Powerful Ngalapo was there. Nothing happened. In 2007, 2008, there was another such come together with the RG led by Prof. Nothing happened. Right? Even before then, Koji Dinka had formed his own government. Nothing happened. So you can look, so you're justified in saying that given all of these initiatives that were rooted in the diaspora, leading to nothing, there really is no reason to try to reinvent the wheel, right?
Yes.
Let's contrast it with what has been happening. You can see an evolution of the intensity of the struggle on ground zero. If we go back to, I can go as far back as let's start in 1972 when the United Republic of Cameroon was proclaimed. And according to stories, under the leadership of Fonlon, he had gathered all of the few West Cameroonians in Yaoundé to try to question, debate on what to do. Apparently, what happened was that the premises that they had gathered to hold the meeting was surrounded by heavily armed military men. And Fonlon is reported to have said, well, this is for our forebears to take care of, or children and great-grandchildren to take care of. You move that to Godi Dinka and his trio of publications in starting 84-85, the New Social Order, letter to the Etat Major, the Rebellion of Ambazonia. It takes it to another level. Obviously, Dinka was eventually exiled.
Yes. Let me do this. Okay.
What I was trying to establish is that you can look at the gradation of activities on ground zero, from that to the SDF, to AAC 1 and 2, to the NCNC, to the SCYL, to the consortium, and now to an armed rebellion.
Yes. I had, to be honest with you, I had all of these programmed to be talked about later. But now that you mention it, I made a note here. I said diaspora control has never worked. Okay? All the governments from abroad never turned even a leaf on the ground. So you've already covered that part. And basically what we're saying is that the conference, as well attended and as forceful it was in 2001, really did not result in anything. In fact, 3 years after that, there was another conference that held in Minnesota, organized by the SCYL, like Terence just said, and that went bust. Okay, so diaspora. But I want to go back to something that we talked about: CDN focusing on the diplomatic mission. And I know you wrote that off, and I think we shouldn't just write it off by just writing. I think there's a very good history that shows that there's no diplomacy that will come save Ambazonia, because think of Michelle Bachelet. In the first few years of the struggle, all these people came down, and when they came down, who did they side with? Did they side with the Ambazonians?
No.
They did not. What did Michelle Bachelet say, if you can remember?
Well, he accused the Ambazonians of burning their own schools and hospitals.
There you go.
And he said that they will be prepared to provide the Cameroon military with the type of training that the G4 forces in the Sahel were operating under. Something like that. So he kind of promised the military assistance.
Yes.
It's scandalous.
Yes, it's scandalous. And then remember, we did a video on this channel, which was asking why do they come? Remember that video?
Mm-hmm.
And we went through all these. We went through all of them, including the AU. What did they? When the AU man came to La République, to Cameroon, we had a drink with Paul Biya. At the time, they were murdering our people. So is it?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, please.
That is why I'm dismissive of it. That's exactly the reason why. They do not understand anything other than the exercise of force. That's the only language they understand, and that is what the Amber boys have understood, and that's the path that they are on until they get to Boya.
Yes.
Because anything else doesn't move these people. It doesn't move Herman Cohen. It doesn't move Anthony Blinken. It doesn't move any of these people, right? When there is an equal exercise of force against the military that the French support and that the Americans indirectly support because they consider the French their partner. Whenever Americans talk, whenever you have a chat with an American and they talk about, we have to work with our partners, they're talking about one country and one country alone, and that is France. Because France has been given the title over French Africa. And that is something which is accepted, right? So the only thing that is going to change any kind of diplomatic posture is an exercise of brute force, as we've said recently. And I think that's what the Amber Boys have completely clearly understood. Conferences, tweets by members of these so-called prominent institutions, they are useless. And as I mentioned during the last time we had the opportunity to chat, we do recall how our people, after hospitals were burned, I think the video that you brought up was the one in Moyuka. This guy went there and was begging these people. That is when they were burning our villages. Right? No. They have embassies there. The Vatican has an embassy in Yaoundé. The Americans have it. They all know all of this. They have satellite technology that can show you where this village was today and where it disappeared after these people came and did what they did. That hasn't moved them. It's not going to move them until the Ambazonian liberation fighters exercise an equal or greater amount of force against these people. And I think the Amber Boys understand that clearly. And I think that's a distinction between ground and the diaspora.
Yes. I just have a few other questions. I want to finish with CDN because I really wanted us to talk about that part and then move into exactly what you've already moved into, because the diaspora has one role to play in terms of what is happening in the territory. And that one role it's not just like Terence has already said. Ground action that is initiated and led by the ground always succeeds. Frundi and the SDF initiated ground action and executed it on the ground, and it succeeded. The diaspora was a very functional diaspora at the time. They contributed a lot of money to support SDF. I remember in Chicago, we had one meeting. Frundi was present in that meeting. That night alone, we raised 16,000 on the floor. I'm not talking money that came in later or that was promised. So the diaspora was working as one. So that is the diaspora supporting the ground. If you also remember SCNC, this NCNC North America that Dr. Shemlon was the spokesman of, that group worked really hard, and a lot of the achievements of SCNC down in the territory was supported from North America. They sponsored trips to Banjul. They sponsored trips to Ompo. They took care of a lot of problems that the SCNC had on the ground, and the SCNC was relevant. The SCNC was relevant in telling our story both home and abroad. The SCNC gave us the Ambazonian flag and some of the symbols of the state that we know. So these are legitimate organizations, but they were very successful on the ground in collaboration with Ambazonians in the territory. And so
in the diaspora.
In the diaspora, thank you. But I still have one question for you, though. I have one question for you. It is said that you know a particular character by what they say, what they do, and what other people say about them. And I'm still coming back on CDN because I want to close on this. I think before our people start listening and dancing to other people's tune, they need to know whose tune they're dancing to. The chairman of CDN, Dr. Foretia, who is he? Do you know him?
No, I don't know him.
I'm going to give you some facts about him and see if there's a conflict of interest in them trying to be some neutral party, trying to organize Ambazonians without organizing La Republique and without rejecting what La Republique is doing. Dr. Foretia has a foundation in Yaoundé. Now, is he willing to, you think, is there a conflict of interest with that ownership in Yaoundé and also trying to play in the Ambazonian struggle at the level they're trying to play at?
You know, this is one thing I want to avoid, because I want to deal with CDN as an organization.
No, organizations are made up by individuals, and here we just give me a second. Just give me a second, please. What we are doing is examining CDN because CDN wants to become involved in our struggle in a way that is troubling when you look at them critically. So no, you cannot separate. I can go into CDN and I can separate individuals who are patriots and who have very vocally out in public say that they are for Ambazonians' independence. But then you can also go in there and you see people who are not that clear, and then you see people who have heavy investments in Yaoundé. Look, this Dr. Foretia, I watched him on YouTube in a debate where there was him, there was Bobga, and I think Sako. And you can tell, and you know, the one thing with Ambazonians is that if you are for Ambazonia, by the time you make 5 statements, an Ambazonian will say, yes, he's for us. The man was never clear about what is going on in Ambazonia and what should be done. So no, organizations are made by individuals, and sometimes you know about the organization by knowing about the individuals. I think Ambazonians have been beaten a few times, and face value is not enough anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up this particular individual. I don't know him. I don't know much about him. So I'm glad that you brought it up. Again, as I said, it is very important that we ask questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not, but what I'm trying to, the point I was going to make was that we need to challenge organizations, because the reason why we really need to challenge organizations is that they have an ability to get in to suck in good people and transform them from the goodness that they represent, that they embody. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why my focus has been on CDN as an organization. Because for any one person you might pick up in CDN and say, this is a suspicious character. I can pick up another person on CDN that has liberation credentials that we know is a bona fide Ambazonian. So we can. That's the reason that I want to focus not on individuals but on the orientation of this organization. You get me?
No, I'm getting you, but as you're talking, I'm thinking about some of what you're saying. Yes, if I go into CDN, I see a lot of patriots of Ambazonia who, if they look at CDN very critically, they would reconsider their belonging in CDN. And some are there, they don't know. Let me tell you something. There's a thing where, if you look at La République very well, every time there's an issue about us or there's something that involves organizations or international meetings about us, they send one of our people there and they go and open their loud mouth selling their people. There's no doubt about
that. You know what? It's very funny, and this is somehow related to when I look at some of the things we discuss about the messaging that I see on the CDN website. Mm-hmm. And I hope I'm wrong. I come to the conclusion that they are part of that one Cameroon policy. And again, I'm not interested in individuals. I'm looking at it from an organizational standpoint. When you go to an organization's website and they're talking about sustainable peace in the Gulf of Guinea, when hundreds of villages are being burned, and that is what they choose to highlight. That's what they choose to highlight. In communication, there are things, in this country they have something they call spin doctors, right?
Yes.
After a debate, the spin doctors go out, they try to downplay what they do not want the public to know and hide what the public wants to know. When you put that at the top of the fold, that is the communication you're sending to the world. That's the signal that this is what you are highlighting.
Yes.
You are highlighting sustainable peace in the Gulf of Guinea over the justice that Ambazonians are seeking.
And they're riding on the Ambazonian train to be making those statements. You know what I'm saying? But I want to go back to something that I was saying because I don't want to lose that thought. If you go to La République du Cameroon, when there's a case in Banjul, right, about Ambazonia, who do they send? John Gute, right? John Gute. Yeah, so when it goes to the case in Banjul, they'll send John Gute. And so these people, you will never see Bia go and attend, or they send one of their francophone stalwart to go and, because they will go there speaking French, and it would highlight the plight of the Ambazonian people, that why is this man struggling with English, being the overseer of English speaking. It's the same with CDN. If you see the people who go out speaking on behalf of CDN, it's not the chairman. Of course, he's the chairman because he must have initiated the creation of CDN. So let's not be blindfolded. It's empirical, just looking at it. But I would like to see Dr. Foretia come and talk to us about Ambazonia, the way they send the nationalist Ambazonian, the patriotic Ambazonians who have been sucked into CDN to come and talk to us. CDN is not an Ambazonian organization, and I don't think Ambazonian organizations should be deferring to them to tell them how they should organize themselves to go and fight a fight that the CDN does not want to speak clearly about.
Yeah, I think your points are well taken. So when you talk about how they always use our own people they put them in front, right, in order to carry out the policies that seemingly, is against our people. They find one of us and put in front. That's why I was cracking up when you talked about how the Republic always sends one of our own people when they have to go to places like Banjul and the rest.
I want to see what you think about what some people have said about CDN. They said that CDN is coming to fill a leadership vacuum that exists in the Ambazonian struggle. Do you agree?
Man, there's no leadership vacuum in the Ambazonian struggle. What a lot of diaspora organizations state, and I think CDN states the same thing, is that they are responding to calls from the diplomatic community for us to speak with one unified voice, right? Am I correct?
No, that's if you ask CDN, that's what they would say. that that the international community wants us to speak with a unified voice. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. Can you tell me one struggle where there was a unified voice?
No, there will never be a unified voice. Listen.
I think it's an excuse by people who do not want to get involved, but think that they need to get involved in order to prevent the progress of the opposition, which is in this case the Ambazonia.
Well, I think some people call it just they want to signal their virtuousness. It's called virtue signaling. But again, that's why I really do not. I'm really not into speaking about these internationalists, because I think they've had ample opportunity, and they can stop this slaughter today without deploying a single international wall. They may need to deploy some troops, but they have tools in their toolkit that they can use to stop to stop this war. They choose not to do it. Yeah, you're right to say that it's an excuse, because there was a time, right, when we had an elected government, legitimate, recognized, that spoke with one voice. That notwithstanding, they still called our people at a conference in Marseille to ask them again to speak in one voice about their desire for independence, and they expressed their desire, right?
Yes.
There was no multitude of voices. But what did they do? They still conspired and humiliated that government.
Yes.
In Tico by giving the Union Jack to Haijo.
Yes, and I think the lesson there.
So the lesson here is, no, they are not serious when they come and admonish our people to say, oh, you guys have to speak in one voice. We will never speak in one voice, especially not in the diaspora. Each time we have constituted, the Ambazonian people have constituted an organization to speak in one voice. What happens to that organization? It gets decapitated. The consortium got decapitated. Right?
Yes. Taking into consideration what you just said, because the Republic understands the importance of leadership. And so they think that if they capitate the leadership, then the organization fails. But we need to defeat that. We need to overcome that, because the Ambazonian military leaders who live in the territory and are conducting this war, and in fact there are areas that they have really secured. So when we talk about ineffectiveness of leadership right now, is the ineffectiveness of ground action, is coordination, and so that they can act as one unit, make strategies that work. And we have said, let me just finish this, please. We've also talked about things that are initiated from the ground and led on the ground have always been successful. So the question is, how do Ambazonians who are now fighting, so that part is completed, how do they affect leadership on the ground, or leadership close to the ground? Definitely not leadership in the diaspora. Not the Western diaspora.
If I had the answer to that question, I won't be sitting here, So you ask the question is how. I do not know how, but I know the word, right? That there has to be a coordinated effort, right, on the ground. On the ground now, there's no politics on the ground as far as this struggle is concerned. It's a liberation war.
Yes.
It's an armed rebellion. It's a liberation war. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but there has to be a national command and control for that armed liberation war to succeed. And that's where there is a need for leadership. So that's where my concern for leadership is. It's not about people and conferences in the diaspora. I don't care about that.
Yes, Terence, we need to start rounding up here. And I would like to do you have some concluding words?
No, my concluding words would be that it is the leadership on the ground that is important at this stage. And I do believe that, as in the past, they're going to find a way forward to help themselves. And I was very comforted by an interview that I saw about a month ago that barrister Paul Abine Aya had given, in which he, out of hand, he dismissed all of these pretenders in the diaspora, and that's the way it should be. The guys fighting, the population that are enduring the harshness of this conflict, they are the people on the ground, and that is from where the solution comes. The diaspora should show a little bit of humility, and if they want to do productive work, let them start doing work, the type of work that organizations like Trans-Africa did in affecting a review of the current American policy that accommodates the French and accommodates this brutal occupation of the Ambazonian territory.
Okay, thank you. The purpose of this particular video was really to make Ambazonians take a look at CDN again, because CDN is taking a posture in the Ambazonian struggle that is a dangerous posture. It is more and more trying to claim some leadership that's not earned. They seem to be talking with double mouth. They have a different communication with the rest of the world and a different communication when it comes to Ambazonians. We shouldn't trust people like that. Ambazonians at this point need to be very, very critical of people they don't know, or people who came up as mushrooms. Even if those organizations send their own brothers and sisters to come and be their mouthpieces, I'm still waiting for the day when Foretia himself will come and address the Ambazonian people the way some of our Ambazonian countrymen have acted as his spokesman to come and talk to us. So CDN and its members need to be very careful what game they're trying to play. They cannot come and ask for a coalition or some kind of a meeting with our people without addressing the enemy who is attacking our people, and our people are fighting back. That's wrong. That's being condescending to the people of Ambazonia. So I want the Ambazonian people to think. I want them to not gather in a place until they know who is calling that meeting. That's how Siseko and the Naira 10 ended up in Kondingi, because they just trust. Our people need to stop trusting, including the Ambazonians who are in CDN right now pushing their agenda. We need to be careful. It seems that CDN is representing some international agenda, and that's why they cannot speak about specifics about us. We are in the fight of our lives, and we need real partners to fight with.